Okay, welcome back for part 3 of the Chapter 7 video lecture series. This will be a short one, uh, but then I'm going to also provide you a link to watch another lecturer give a presentation on effective weight loss strategies. So we're going to wrap up with body mass index. Body mass index is very controversial. Many of you have probably know about this controversy, but we still need to learn about it because we want to understand its potential strengths as well as limitations. What we do know about BMI is that a higher BMI is correlated with a higher risk of disease as well as early mortality. So when we look at BMI, it's kind of a U-shaped curve. Not only is a higher BMI associated with greater mortality in both males and females, but a lower BMI under 18.5 is also associated with higher mortality. So if we were to continue this data to the left, where we would see a BMI under 18.5, both the blue and green lines would actually start to extend upwards. So really, you want to have a BMI somewhere probably between, I'd say, 20 and 24-ish. That appears to be where early mortality is the lowest. Well, one of the problems with BMI is the way it's kind of arbitrarily categorized. There are distinct delineated categories based on one's BMI. So BMI under 18.5 is considered underweight, a healthy weight 18.5 to 24.9, overweight 25 to 29.9, so on and so forth. The data on how these categories have been determined is not especially robust or strong. And so that arbitrary categorization is somewhat of an issue with BMI. Secondly, is that BMI does not take into consideration some very important factors about one's health and who they are. It doesn't look at their age, doesn't take into account their gender, nor does it take into account one's ethnicity. And so those are three huge individual variables that BMI does not take into account, right? Because we're just using height and weight. It also doesn't take into account how much muscle mass someone has, okay, or what their fitness level. In other words, someone may be very fit in the sense that they're physically active, they can run a marathon, but yet they may have a higher percentage of body fat. And so they could be unfairly categorized as overweight or maybe even obese, but yet they could be more fit than someone who is at a healthy weight or underweight. It also, lastly, BMI does not consider one's quality of their diet. And that's what we would be concerned about in this class. You could have someone who's overweight or obese who eats 5 servings of fruits and vegetables each day, who eats more than 50% of their grains as whole grains. Is this person less than healthy than someone who's at this quote-unquote healthy weight, who maybe doesn't exercise, perhaps smokes, doesn't eat fruits and vegetables, eats mostly white refined grains? Can you see where I'm going with this? So a lot of conclusions are made based on one's BMI that may not truly be fair conclusions to make. But nonetheless, we should know how to calculate BMI. And the calculation for BMI, the formula is your weight in kilograms, which we learned how to calculate in Chapter 6, divided by one's height in meters squared. So I'm confident that you guys know how to take someone's weight and convert that into kilograms. But height, let's say we have someone who's at a height of 5'11", we need to get that into meters. Well, instead of doing a lot of funky conversions using standard to metric, we can use a factor of 39.4. So all we need to do is convert one's height into inches. There's 12 inches per foot, right? So 12 times 5 is 60, plus 11 more makes 71. And you divide that by a factor of 39.4, and voila, we're done. 1.8 meters. Ooh, wait, we're not done. The formula says you have to square one's height in meters. So what do? Do we just square 1.8 plus 1.8? Well, that would be easy. It's 3.6. Well, no, that's not what squaring means, right? To square a number means to multiply it by itself. So 1.8 multiplied by itself, 1.8, is actually 3.2. That's a very common mistake I see students make. They actually add meters instead of multiplying it by itself. So now we've got the two numbers we need. We've got kilograms, we've got meters squared, and here we go. 81.8 divided by 3.2 equals 25.6, which we can round out to 1 decimal point. BMI is always rounded to 1 decimal point, I should say. Once we have that information, we can go back, if you'll allow me to, back to our weight status categories, and we can see that that person would then be classified as overweight. Again, though, we want to be careful. We don't know anything about this person's age, their gender. We don't know how muscular they are. We don't know what they eat in their diet. So we want to be careful about not making too many conclusions about this person's health. Next week when we get together for class, everyone will calculate their own BMI. If you want to do it in advance for practice, that is perfectly fine. Okay, well that concludes part 3 of the video lecture series. I'm going to give you further instructions within our D2L course on how to access that other audio lecture, video lecture that I want you to view. Thank you for joining me.